Fantasy football fan, what's going on? I'm Mitchell Renz, your host of Fantasy Football AF. I got a fun show for you guys on tap today. I got news, I got rumors, I got my AF of the week. So, Lena, behind the screen there, how about you send me some of those nudes and let's get this party going. Ooh, made a little bit of a mess. All right, Chris Carson, he is working with the Seahawks first team offense. And does that really surprise me? Not really. You know why? Because I don't really think Rashaad Penny is all that good. Rashaad Penny was drafted in the first round this year, the 2018 draft, 27th overall. And, well, I didn't like the pick whatsoever. I could have made the argument that it was the worst pick in the entire NFL draft. Penny, sure, was an absolute monster in college, but let's not forget a guy like Chris Carson, who was actually pretty productive last year. He averaged 54 rushing yards per game, and only 4 games. He ended the season with an injury, but if he can come back and be as good as what he was last year, why not invest in a guy like that? At his current ADP of 1103 right now, in round 11, I will 100% take a guy like Chris Carson instead of a guy like Rashaad Penny, who's going in round 4. For me, it is an easy Chris Carson over Rashaad Penny. And the fact that he's working with the first team offense, that should give you a little bit of confidence as well. Next one, as I dribble on myself a little bit, all right, is Dez Bryant. The Cleveland Browns have reached out to Dez Bryant. And there is all sorts of Dez Bryant news and talk going around the NFL right now, which I think is pretty awesome to see. And the GM has even said that they are considering bringing Bryant to Cleveland. Oh, man, am I the only one that just doesn't like the sound of that? I understand right now Dez is going undrafted. That's what the graphic said before. However, that's going to change. He's going to be a top 30 wide receiver going off of boards once Dez finds a home. And if it's with the Browns, that is such a headache because there's so many mouths to feed already in Cleveland. I don't even know what I want to do with that offense. But for Dez, I'm not sure if Dez still has it. He lost a few steps last year. The guy hasn't had 1,000 receiving yards since 2014. Are we really sure that Dez Bryant is still the receiver? We're pointing the finger at Dak. Maybe it wasn't Dak's fault. But this show isn't just about me. I want to know from you guys as well. Is Dez Bryant washed up? If you can read, it's pretty simple. Type a Y for yes or type an N for no. If you think Dez is just done, type in, if you think he's washed up, type in a Y. If you don't, it's a no. For me, though, I think he's washed up. I don't think no matter where he goes, he's not going to be worth the money. Definitely not going to be worth my money for fantasy football, that's for sure. The next news bit I got for you guys coming up on the board is about Sam Bradford, a guy who might have worse knees than me, and that's not good considering the fact that I've torn my ACL numerous times. Maybe not as many as Bradford, though. But the reports right now, it is Sam Bradford's job to lose. Sam's Bradford job to lose in Arizona, which is kind of interesting because they drafted a guy like Rosen, who I like Rosen as a long-term talent, and our NFL draft insider here, Tom Downey, likes him as well. But for terms of Sam Bradford and fantasy, Bradford's actually been pretty reliable, not just for him, but for what he brings to an offense. Now, Sam Bradford is the king of checkdowns, like the absolute king of checkdowns. And last season, he only threw for 300 yards. He had a 74% completion percentage in the year that he was with the Vikings. In 2016, he set the NFL completion percentage record. So he's going to check down the ball. And what I really like about Bradford is, a guy like Larry Fitzgerald's still going to get production. A guy like David Johnson's going to get production. But a guy that I want you to keep in mind, Ricky Seals-Jones. Zach Ertz, geez, one sip in, I'm already hammered. All right, Zach Ertz, 2015, 75 catches. That's a lot of production, 112 targets. 2016, Kyle Rudolph, 132 targets, 83 catches. Why? Sam Bradford loves tight ends because you can't throw the ball more than 10 yards. He's going to check it down. A sleeper to keep your eye on, Ricky Seals-Jones. Can I get some in the comments? That's my best Seal voice I can make. Sorry, guys. Maybe I'll improve on that. Fantasy football fam, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Fantasy Football AF. We're going to have an awesome season. We're going to have a lot of craft beers. We're going to talk fantasy football. It's going to be a good time. And if you at least like me, I don't know, at least halfway decent, maybe more than I liked my date this past weekend, you can follow me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365 or any kind of social media because, well, that's where I am just about everywhere, 365 days a year. You guys can find me. Now, I talked about some news. Now I'm going to get into an awesome segment, and it's my Fantasy AF of the week. And this one is with a guy like Latavius Murray. And Latavius Murray is a guy who I've talked about on numerous shows before. Latavius Murray is this season's plan B. What the heck does that mean? Well, I understand. All right, guys, I like to go out. I like to have a good time. I like to meet people. And sometimes plan A is to maybe bring a girl back home and have a good time. Unfortunately, plan A sometimes doesn't always work out. That's where plan B comes in. And Latavius Murray is this year's plan B. Dalvin Cook broke last year in the fourth week, and now we got to deal with a guy like Latavius Murray. But Murray's actually been pretty productive, right? So last year, 216 carries, 842 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's missed only 3 games the last 4 years, 20 rushing touchdowns the last 2 seasons. He's been an RB11, he's been an RB13, and RB20 the last 3 years. Latavius Murray is actually pretty reliable. And the funny part is, his running back ADP right now is RB50. I don't know if you guys have ever used Plan B, but Plan B is actually $50. So, coincidence or not, Latavius Murray is a guy that you shouldn't sleep on. He's this year's Plan B, and he's a guy who I think ultimately is pretty reliable. So, if you guys like my fantasy football advice, I would definitely appreciate hitting me over there with that follow, at MitchellRens365. Why don't you follow Chat Sports too? We're basically everywhere at Chat Sports on Instagram. You guys can follow us on Twitter as well. I absolutely love what this company's doing for me, and we're doing a lot of awesome material here. So, the next one I got for you guys coming up are my fantasy football rumors. And well, we've talked about news, and a lot of times, if Lane is sending me nudes, it's probably going to lead to some rumors. I mean, that's just the way it goes. At least that's how it worked in high school. And then we talked about AF. Well, so I've given you guys nudes. I've given you guys Plan B. I guess the only thing left to do now is rumors. So, cheers to that. I mean, what else are we going to do on this show? Fantasy Football AF indeed. Lena, how about you send me some of those rumors, please? Josh Gordon, is he going to be a bust this season? I'm going to let you guys soak this one in while I take a sip. My answer to this is perhaps. So this is a guy who is already in the headlines this offseason, fellas. Like, he's already not going to show up to training camp because he needs to get his mind straight. And I am not crazy about that just because Josh Gordon is a guy who I feel like just needs to be on the field. Like, this guy hasn't played much. And then we're going to talk about a guy who, his last 10 seasons, 1 touchdown. Or 10 games, my mistake, 10 seasons, he hasn't been there. 10 games, 1 touchdown. Is that a guy you can actually rely on? Like, oh, there goes my phone. We talk about all the time that, like, a guy like Josh Gordon, he has the upside, right? We remember how amazing he was, but 1 touchdown in his last 10 games. He's played in only 10 games since 2014. Is that a guy you really want to rely on? Currently going in the 3rd round of drafts? No thanks. I think he's going to be a bust. Tyrod Taylor's never had a receiver with over 61 catches. He's only had 1 wide receiver with 1,000 yards, and there's so many mouths to feed. Not to mention a guy like Jarvis Landry, who has the most catches in his first 4 years in the NFL season with 400. Yeah, sorry guys. Josh Gordon is going to be a bust this year. Don't draft him. It's not worth it. Now as I look for my phone, Lena, let's get me one of those another rumors. And this guy, Jerick McKinnon, this guy who I've met at the NFC this past year in Dallas. And well, I'm as tall as Jerick McKinnon, and that's kind of cool to say. He definitely is probably in better shape than me. Can definitely outrun me. But this is a guy who I absolutely love. And this rumor is coming out that the 49ers came out and said that Jerick McKinnon could have 1,500 total yards this season. That's an absolute breakout year for a running back. And it excites me because I think Shanahan knows the kind of running backs that excel in his system. I think he knows deep down what kind of running backs are going to excel, right? So McKinnon traded to the 49ers. He's going to get work. He's getting $13 million guaranteed this year. That's a very front-loaded contract. They're going to give him the work, and I understand he averaged only 3.8 yards per carry last year. But you know who else averaged 3.8 yards per carry? Devonta Freeman, the year before Shanahan showed up. Turned Freeman into 1,600 total yards and 11 touchdowns. Over 11 touchdowns. And then in 2008, a rookie, Steve Slayton, over 1,600 yards and over 11 touchdowns. Like, it's not so far-fetched to believe that a guy like Jerick McKinnon could have over 1,500 yards. He really could, guys. It's not far-fetched at all. And for that reason, could he have over 1,500 yards? That's a high stretch for me. However, I'm still going to pick the under, but he's a guy right now who is an RB12 for me. Don't sleep on Jerick McKinnon. All right, next guy I got coming up is Will Fuller. And the rumor is here, has he bulked up? Has Will Fuller put on weight? And the rumor is 100% true. Yes, bulked up to 185 pounds. LOL. Like, is that even like remarkable for a wide receiver to be able to say that, oh yeah, I bulked up to 185? Guys, I almost weigh 185 pounds, and I'm not an NFL wide receiver, nor would I even last close to probably an entire season without getting hurt because I'm just, well, for one, I'm just not durable, and yeah, I'm not an NFL athlete. But Will Fuller, the hype around him is insane. So if you look right there, 2017, 423 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. His first 13 catches in the NFL last year, 7 of them were touchdowns. The third year is known as the breakout year for Will Fuller, and there's no doubt that this guy could break out. absolutely no doubt. Because with Deshaun Watson, Fuller was a monster. And if you want to take numbers, because if you think numbers are funny, he was on pace for 28 touchdowns last year. I'm going to take the under on that because I don't think that's possible. It would also be absolutely ludicrous. Shout out to Luda. But I don't think that's going to happen whatsoever. Fuller without Watson didn't have a single game with a touchdown, and he didn't have a game with over 45 yards. I think the chemistry is there with Watson, big playability, and on a Texans offense that was the #1 offense in the football last year with Watson. So, Will Fuller, he's bulked up. If he can play more than 14 games this year, where he's currently going in drafts, he's going to be an absolute steal. Fantasy Football fam, thank you so much for tuning in to Fantasy Football AF. I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. You guys can follow me on Twitter, @MitchellRenz365. And until next time, cheers.